The dust has barely settled on the 2021 Formula One season, but today we're talking all things 2022. Now, the upcoming F1 season is set to be quite different. In 2022, the cars will undergo a significant change to their aerodynamics to allow the drivers to race wheel to wheel on a more regular basis. The majority of teams actually stopped their development on the 2021 car fairly early on in the season so they could focus on their 2022 models. However, the battle in the constructors, particularly between the top 4 teams this year, may have an impact on next season. In today's video, I'm going to predict the standings for the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship and say who I think could be the Driver of the Year. And of course, I'm back with my trusty notebook, which will guide me through next season. So we're going to start with the Constructors' Championship. And in 10th or last place, I think it'll be Haas again. Now, this might come as a bit of a surprise because throughout the year, Gunter Steiner and Haas have just talked about their 2022 car, how they've not put any money or developed their 2021 car, and that their focus is just on next season. And while this is definitely true, they've got a new design factory in Italy, they've partnered again with Dallara for support for their chassis, I do think that they will struggle next year. Now, while it might be more of a level playing field and they might not be too far behind the back markers, the main issue that Haas have got is their drivers, because both Mick Schumacher and Nikita Mazepin are fairly inexperienced and they both struggled in F1 this year. So going into 2022, where feedback will be essential, could be a bit of an issue. In 9th place, I put Alfa Romeo. Now, this is another team that, like Haas, focused all their efforts this year on next year's car. But one of the major reasons that they're likely to have done that is due to the budget cap, which will have affected them quite heavily. The other problem that Alfa Romeo have got going into next season is they have a complete rookie in their lineup. So once again, if they're looking for feedback on their new car, they won't really be able to get that from Guan Yu Zhou. A team that I think has got a good chance to battle in the midfield next year is Williams. Now, in my standings, I've put them as 7th in the Constructors for next year. This is mainly due to the fact they have new owners who are pumping money into the team. They will also be using Mercedes' gearboxes next year, and they have the addition of Alex Albon. And whilst I don't think we'll see miracles from Williams, I think we could see an improved season. Now, one team that I do see slipping down the pecking order is AlphaTauri. Being the sister team to Red Bull, AlphaTauri is not the main focus of Red Bull Technologies, and that's meant that a lot of their design and development has had to take place back in Italy. And again, like Haas, they have the disadvantage of Yuki Tsunoda, who has only completed 1 season in Formula One. Now, I spoke about this team in my previous video, but I think everyone was surprised by Aston Martin's real lack of pace and race performance. And it doesn't seem like things could massively improve going into 2022. So I've put them at 6th in the Constructors' Championships. They are Mercedes' main customer, however, their senior personnel that they've just hired and the campus that they're building, we won't really see the effects of that until 2023. So for 2022, I've put them in 6th place. Now, one team that's a bit of an unknown going into 2022 is Alpine. I've put them as 5th in the Constructors, and I don't really think we can expect them to go any higher than that. The team has already said that they don't expect to be consistently scoring podiums until 2024, so there's a lot of development that needs to be done. However, they do have very good drivers in Esteban Ocon and Fernando Alonso, so we'll just have to see what happens next year. Now, the battle for 3rd in the Constructors this year was closely fought between Ferrari and McLaren. But going into 2022, I think McLaren will probably achieve a solid 4th, but not really come close to beating Ferrari, who I've put as 3rd. Whilst McLaren sorted out their budget last year through a various number of cuts, the issue that they have is that going into next season with the new regulations, the majority of the new rules are focused on aerodynamics. Now, McLaren still uses a wind tunnel in Cologne, which is rather outdated compared to other Formula One teams who actually have their own wind tunnel and their own aerodynamic testing in their factories. Whether this will actually play out to be an issue if they don't have enough time to test the car, I'm not sure, but for now I've put them in 4th. Now, as I said, I think that Ferrari will get 3rd in the constructors. This year they mainly focused on their 2022 model. They stopped upgrading their SF21, so that's definitely a positive for them. Their power unit, whilst not being changed completely, is being upgraded going into next season, and they have 2 really good drivers in Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc. That being said, I don't see them challenging Mercedes or Red Bull in the constructors. And swiftly leading on to the top 2 teams, I'm going to put Red Bull as 2nd and Mercedes as 1st. However, I think it will be a very, very tight competition. Now, with Honda leaving, Red Bull are having to sort out the powertrain and the IP issues themselves, which could work in their favour or against them. And my prediction is that whilst immediately we won't see them necessarily at the top of their game, I think throughout the season they will have a gradual rise. And like I said earlier, the regulations are mainly centred around aerodynamics, and they have Adrian Newey, who basically is the king of aerodynamics in Formula 1. So like I said, even though I've put Mercedes as 1st and Red Bull as 2nd, I do believe that it could really go to either 2 of the teams. One of the other reasons that I put Mercedes 1st is because of the Drivers' Championship this year. Red Bull were really putting a lot of their resources into making sure that Max Verstappen won, whereas Mercedes appear to have kept it slightly more balanced, and on social media already we've already seen that they've fired up next year's car. So it seems like they are going to be well ahead of the game, but like I say, it really is anyone's guess who will land 1st or 2nd in the constructors between those 2 teams. Moving on to the drivers' standings, this was actually really difficult to put together. I initially thought I'd maybe struggle with like the top 5, but I was struggling right from the start as to pin down really who I think would be at the back, who I think would be at the front. So we're going to start with in 20th place, and I've put Nikita Mazepin in the Haas. Again, I just don't think it's probably going to be a great year for Haas, and we've already seen this year that Mick Schumacher well and truly outqualified and outraced Mazepin. So Mazepin I've put in 20th. However, I haven't put his teammate for 19th. I put Nicholas Latifi in the Williams. Now, this might seem like a bit of a harsh rating given that he had some very good results for being in the Williams in 2021, but I think that we will see Alex Albon triumph over him, and I just can't see him rising that much in the standings. In 18th, I've put Mick Schumacher. Again, the main issue that Schumacher's got is the fact that he's in the Haas. However, he is a good driver, and we saw definite glimpses of that in 2021. So 18th for Schumacher. 17th, this sounds really harsh because he is just a rookie, but I've put Guan Yu Zhou, who will be in the Alfa Romeo next year. The car is an unknown. We don't really know what's going to happen with it, but if it's based on previous seasons, it's not going to be too great, and the rookies have struggled in the past 2 years getting to grips with Formula 1 anyway, so I've put 17th for Guan Yu Zhou. In 16th is Yuki Tsunoda. I hope he has a better season than this because he was brilliant in Abu Dhabi in the last race. But based on last season and then going into this season with a new car again, I can't really see it adding up, but I hope he does better. In 15th, we've got a returning Formula 1 driver, that is Alex Albon, who will be driving for Williams. Now, I put Albon in 15th place because he is a brilliant racer when you put him in a car that obviously he likes. I also think that we never really got to see Alex Albon at his best when he was in Red Bull. We got little glimpses in AlphaTauri, but I'm very excited for Albon to return to the grid this year, and I put him in 15th, so I hope he does better than that as well, but I think 15th would be a solid start. I've been talking so much that my camera's cut out. However, moving on to 14th is Lance Stroll. This prediction is based on last year's results and also Aston Martin's car going into next season. I can't see Stroll breaking the top 10 if I'm being honest, and I think 14th is a more likely position. Tumbling down the tables is Valtteri Bottas. Part of this is because I don't have a lot of faith in the Alfa Romeo, and also Valtteri has always sort of struggled trying to make his way through the field. We saw Hamilton do it on numerous occasions last year, but Bottas always blamed the Mercedes, said that it wasn't a good car for following, but he will be following a lot of cars in the Alfa Romeo. So he'll definitely have to pick up that technique somehow, and just because we haven't seen it before, I can't really give him any higher than 13th. My next prediction is probably going to cause World War III in the comments section, because if you put Sebastian Vettel anywhere below 10th, then you're asking for trouble. But I've put him in 12th, and it's my ratings, I can do that. But the main reason is just the Aston Martin as a car. You know, Vettel I've rated higher than his teammate Lance Stroll, but I think it could be another difficult year for Aston Martin and its drivers. A race winner from this year, Esteban Ocon, just misses out on the top 10. I've put him in 11th. I have no clue how the Alpine is going to be in 2022. It could win the Drivers' Championship, I don't know, but for now I think it's fairly safe to put Ocon as 11th. He's a good driver, but it just seems to be very much a midfield car, and I can't see the regulations changing that so much, so Ocon 11th. Again, probably one that a lot of you will disagree with. I've put Pierre Gasly as 10th. Now, this isn't to say that I think he's a bad driver, because I don't. I really rate Gasly. But for the reasons that I listed beforehand, I think AlphaTauri will struggle going into 2022. And I think if we have the crazy races that we have had in 2021, Gasly could definitely benefit from that. But I just can't see him being so high in the driver's standings, and that is purely down to the car. Ocon's teammate gets 9th, Fernando Alonso. What a year he had. I think he will actually thrive in 2022. I feel like with the new regulations, the new rules, everything being a bit more on a level playing field, apparently. I just think that Alonso will sort of rise up from that. So I put him in 9th, and I wouldn't be surprised if he even managed to get 7th in the driver's standings. I'm saying it now, Alonso is back. In 8th place, I have Daniel Ricciardo. I've got to learn my lesson from this one, because last year I did a driver's predictions on TikTok, which is a crime within itself. But I put Ricciardo something like 5th in the driver's standings, and how wrong was I? So I put him as 8th, which is an improvement. I'm not convinced that the McLaren is going to be as strong as it has been this year, and as we've seen already, Lando Norris, his teammate, just seems to beat Ricciardo when it comes to qualifying and the race. So 8th place for me. I think he'll just be a solid midfield driver and a solid midfield car. Speaking of his teammate, I've put Lando Norris as 7th. Can I see Norris getting as many podiums next year? No. Could I see him potentially having a race win? Yes, but I don't think he might get as many podiums as he has from this season just gone. And like I say, at the moment, the McLaren is a tricky one going into 2022. So 7th, maybe 6th, but 7th for now. In 6th, I have Charles Leclerc. Now, a lot of you know that I am a Ferrari fan, so I was going to say maybe this is my bias, but I genuinely don't think so. I do think that Ferrari are going to be the better team compared to McLaren next year. So I put Charles Leclerc as 6th, only because Carlos Sainz did such a good job last year, and I think he'll get 5th. But I think it'll be a really strong year for both Ferrari drivers. So I'm very excited, not just because I'm a fan, but also to see them do really well. As I said, Carlos Sainz I've put in 5th place. I'll have more on that in a second. But in 4th, I've put Sergio Perez. I had a bit of a tough time actually deciding whether to put Perez or George Russell as 4th. But ultimately, as I've said in the constructors, I think that Mercedes will have the better car. And also the fact that Perez's qualifying over the past year wasn't great, whereas George Russell is the master of qualifying. So for now, I've got Sergio Perez as 4th and George Russell as 3rd. As for who will win the Drivers' Championship, your guess is as good as mine, because I think a lot of us feel, well, certainly I feel, it's between two people, Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. I'm going to say cautiously, Lewis Hamilton will win the Drivers' Championship. I think he'll be quite reinvigorated, wanting revenge. I think the Mercedes car will be great. I think they'll want revenge. So I'm going to say Lewis Hamilton to win. That said, I think Max Verstappen will also have a point to prove, because I think he'll want to show it wasn't just a fluke and that all the issues from Abu Dhabi weren't actually a major influence in him winning the title. Like, he's a driver well worthy of winning the title, and I think he'll want to prove that again next year. So I'm expecting a big battle between Verstappen and Hamilton. But for the sake of putting it in a table, I am going to say Hamilton first, Verstappen second. Now, I said that I'd talk about the driver I put in 5th place, which is Carlos Sainz. So, disclaimer, I am a huge fan of Carlos Sainz. I think he's a brilliant driver, sort of like an unassuming, subtle driver that is brilliant, that's on the grid. But I think actually he will be the driver of the year. And I'm going to say it now. I'm going to predict that he will have at least 2 race wins and he'll be on the podium 5 times. This is going to come back to bite me, I already know. I know that I've jinxed it for next year. But that's my prediction, and as a Ferrari fan, as a Carlos Sainz fan, I really hope it does come true. So those are my predictions for the upcoming F1 season. As always, make sure you comment down below what your predictions are for the 2022 season. I'd be very interested to hear them. And if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe for more content in the future.